Welcome to That's Good Craic.
With me, Dan, Colin.
Oh yes, what's the crack?
And Mick.
Yo, yo, yo.
Listen to our podcast every Wednesday.
Hello guys, welcome to episode number 5 of That's Good Craic. I'm Colin. I'm going to lead it today because Danny was too scared to.
Thanks, Colin. Love you too, brother.
The more we do them, the more he gets nervous. Which I don't.
Oh, man.
What are you doing, Danny? You good?
I'm great, man. Thanks for the lovely introduction. I appreciate it. Yeah. Sweating buckets now, like.
I'd just like to say also, we have a very special guest all the way from California with us today, Amy Guerrero. Amy, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome. It's so nice to see you guys and to be here today. I love that we're connecting all the way from California to Ireland.
Yeah, California, Ireland, Spain. We're right across the globe today, which is pretty awesome. How are you doing, Mick?
Fantastic.
Super fantastic or just fantastic?
Just fantastic. I'm not gonna do a Colin on it.
super fantastic. So Amy, I tell you what I kind of found interesting about you is that when I seen on your Instagram profile that you were a recovery coach. Now I had never heard of a recovery coach before, so we thought in Ireland a coach is a bus.
Yeah.
So we thought it was a bus that drove people to and from meetings and stuff. I was like, that's pretty cool.
I just had this image of what my bus would look like if I did that.
We gotta hear that.
Have a mocktail bar in it and everything.
Exactly. I would be serving them up like healthy green drinks. I'm like, I know you think you don't like vegetables, but you're gonna like this.
How awesome would that be, though? That would be super cool. That would be like the best thing ever. I want to have one of those.
Yeah.
But, so what is it? Just give us a little bit of background about what you do, because I'm really interested to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So it's really a mentorship. Does that word resonate with you more than coach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mentorship coach.
Yeah, totally. So I offer one-on-one and group mentoring to people that choose recovery, that choose conscious sobriety. And what I really do is I help people take their life to the next level. So getting sober is the first step. Choosing to put down the substance is the first step. And what I found for myself is that the real option after I went to treatment a number of times was like, okay, now go to 12-step meetings. And I was going to 12-step meetings and I wasn't seeing the kind of recovery the kind of lifestyle I was living before I decided to get sober. I saw a lot of people replacing one bad habit for another bad habit, and it didn't make sense to me. Like, I was like, wait a second. So now I'm supposed to like smoke a lot of cigarettes, drink a lot of coffee, eat a lot of sugar, and I didn't hear a lot of solution. And so I worked the steps. I did the thing because that's what I was told to do, and I wanted to stay sober. And I started to expand my life in recovery way beyond that. I was already teaching yoga. I was already teaching health and nutrition classes. Like, I had a lot of this background, even if I was snorting a line of cocaine sometimes before I taught yoga. I was still doing the damn thing.
That's some crazy yoga.
Well, Colombian style yoga.
Come to Colombian yoga with Amy.
Yeah, and in my head it was like even me out, like, oh, nobody can tell that I was up until 5 a.m. if I do this. But interestingly, I was still determined to keep that lifestyle up, right? It was like I knew there was a healthy way to live. I just didn't know how to put down the substances. So when I really stayed stopped, I started mentoring people on how to have a whole integration with their recovery and not just it be about the one thing. And for me, so much of the reason that I drank and used the way that I did, especially at the end, was because I was in so much trauma and so much pain, and no one was really helping me get to the root cause of it. So I'd covered it up really effectively for 38 years. And when I went to work on that, I didn't feel safe to do that in the 12-step rooms. And I really needed someone with lived experience to help me get to that other step. And so when I realized like I have so much of this lived experience and I can share it with others and give them an opportunity to get their whole life back and really like rock it out, I was like, this is it. And I've never felt more on purpose in my life. And that's a big part of this. It's like we get to like uncover and discard all the shit that wasn't working for us and then really live on purpose and show up exactly how we are and laugh at ourselves, you know, and have a good time and be the cartoon characters that we want
to be. It sounds like a lot you kind of approach it from a lifestyle perspective more so than actual, like, you know, the theory of it or the, like you said, the other kind of programs that's in place, like 12-step programs or whatever, you kind of approach it from more of a lifestyle and promote healthy living and stuff. That's pretty cool. I think the three of us here kind of experience a lot of that through our own lifestyles, but not, it just kind of developed that way. Am I right in saying that? I know I have anyway. I kind of approach sobriety with a more of a lifestyle kind of thing where I kind of, I partake in lots of activities, whether it's recreation stuff like sports, or I'm always trying to educate myself or that kind of thing, you know, and it stimulates my brain more than, you know, but I do drink a lot of coffee.
I'm not saying we have to give up those things. Believe me, I've got a couple of habits that I'm like, this doesn't really serve me, but like, I still do it. But what I hear from all of you guys, and I've listened to your podcast and like really been tuned into what you guys are up to, is that like, you're willing to stay curious and play with all of these things. And that's one of my favorite parts about working with men is that like, when I give a suggestion, they're like, hell yeah. Like, I totally want to try that. And they approach it with like this little boy look at, you know, in their face. And I'm like, yes, like that's your heart talking to you, telling you like, it's okay to do that. And instead of just dumping a whole bunch of substances on that little boy that wants to go out and play and have a good time and experience some fun stuff.
That's funny that you say that little boy, because actually I've never looked at it from that perspective. But when someone suggests something that excites me, I actually feel like a child.
Totally. Well, and think about, you know, I mean, so much of the mask that I started to wear, because I had some trauma that happened to me when I was a little kid. So the mask that I started to wear really young was being like the adult and being so serious about life and really excelling at school and, you know, kind of parenting myself at such a young age. And so then when I found substances, I was like, woohoo, like this is my playground. And now I can do it through the lens of like ecstasy and alcohol and drugs and cocaine and acid and having all these fun experiences. But the whole time I was just trying to play.
Yeah.
I mean, that for me is really cool, because one of the things for me when I left down drinking drugs was, and it really holds important to my life, is that I didn't stop drinking and drugging to drag myself through the rest of my life and just, you know, exist, let's say, for want of a better word, exist and just say, right, now I'm stopped. And as you said, just smoke and drink coffee and really not. The reason why I gave it up was so I could exactly what you said, experience life, go and see life as a playground, do different things, scuba diving, whatever it may be that stands out. And I think, well, this is going to be fun. Let's try it and enjoy it. Otherwise, for me, this is my personal opinion, why did I stop drinking? You know what I mean? Because I wanted a life. And for me, that's what stopping is about, is finding the things you love to enjoy in life. And the only way for me to do that is to actually go and try them and experience things. And I like that concept. I mean, I suppose one of the questions that was I was thinking about when you were talking was, do you then do like, and is it specifically kind of looking at how they can integrate into life and do new things, or do you dig deeper, or do you leave that to, say, professionals to do that?
Oh, no, that's a great question. Thanks so much. And I really appreciate what you said, because gosh, I hang out with a lot of musicians and a lot of really creative, talented people that, especially as we've gotten into our 40s, that are really considering trying to live a more sober lifestyle. And they're so afraid that they're not going to be able to play when they do. And I'm like, everything is actually amplified when you're sober. And like, if you can have that curiosity and have that joy and that fun with it, then like, you're going to play that much better. You're going to, you know, have sex that much better. You're going to like do all these things that you're afraid to do through that sober lens with more joy and more exhilaration and more just feeling it, right? Like we're halfway numb when we're doing it that way. And it's an outlet, especially here in the States, of like, that's the way you get to have fun. Is like that first time you take mushrooms, that first time you take acid, that first drink you have, like that's the avenue, that's the vehicle to get you to fun. And we leave so much of, or I left so much of who I was behind because I thought that I needed to have those things to be cool, to be liked. And, you know, to answer your question, yes, we go deep right away, actually. Okay. Because I have a trauma-informed like background, and I understand trauma so well, and I've used so many different modalities to heal myself, and I continue to, because trauma is trauma is trauma is trauma. Whether I stubbed my toe, or you know, sexual molestation, or you know, your parents left you at the grocery store, or you know, you saw somebody get killed. Like there's so many different types of it, and you know, when I chose to pick up alcohol and drugs and really use that to cope, what I set myself up for unconsciously was to continue to re-traumatize myself throughout my life, right? So I would have too much to drink and things happen that I didn't really consent to, which, you know, like that for, especially for women and for men, honestly, like however you identify, like you're putting yourself in a situation where you're not conscious. And so you don't know what's going to happen. And I felt so much guilt and shame that I was like, well, it's my fault. Of course I did that. And until I found a teacher who really showed me, like the first thing that he asked me was like, when did this kind of abuse start for you? I was like, oh man, as a little kid. So I actually went on the journey to, I was going to heal all of my trauma before I turned 40. And instead I ended up in treatment. So I went to find my birth mom. I went to like heal all these relationships with men and heal all these friendships where I couldn't really show up at around 38. And literally within 6 months of starting that journey without support, I was in treatment for alcohol abuse. And at that point, I was like highly addicted to it. So when people work with me, actually, the first thing that we do is this like a real deep dive on what happened. Like, what are the stories that you remember? And I let them do it in like whatever creative format works for them. But for the first 2 to 3 weeks, we're really identifying those original things that happened. And the way that I refer to it is like we put a string, we attach a string to that original incident, and then we pull it through and see how you've been acting with that behavior based on like what happened then. And you were doing the best you could with what you had. And then you start to imprint that behavior in your life all of these years. And so then you're, you know, 19 or 47, and like you think that's the only way to live. But when we start pulling on that string and then we can untangle it and realize like that's just your pattern. That's not who you are. That's just a pattern you develop to fucking survive. And it's okay. Yeah, I just got really deep, but
now, Amy, just on that, like when people are coming to you, you had mentioned like say 12-step programs. Are the people that say, for instance, been through 12-step programs or started in that, been through treatment, or is it people just like off the street, like see an ad and go, I have an issue with alcohol or drug abuse and I want to get some help? Like, I mean, what type of people come to you, or what stage are they at, like, or what kind of level of addiction would you be dealing with?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So, you know, it's interesting. I do attract both kind of people. So I attract people that are just like, wow, this approach seems to resonate with me and I haven't tried anything else yet. And those people I'm really excited to help because they haven't necessarily had the experiences to tell them that there's the only one way. What they're hearing from me is like, oh, I can make this a part of my lifestyle. Like, that sounds badass. Like, I want to do that. But most of the people that I'm working with currently have actually been to treatment several times and been through some kind of recovery program. And it just wasn't working with them because, and this is why it's such a great question, because there was no integration. They went straight from treatment into 12-step programs and then thought that their life was just going to like be okay. And they didn't like think about, oh, my nutrition, my environment, you know, where am I going to live? Do I even like my work anymore? You know, now that I'm like seeing things through this sober lens, and they feel suffocated and as if like, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. And so what I really help people do is integrate all of that. You know, you don't have to leave any parts of you behind anymore. You can bring it all together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It's quite an interesting thing because Jesus, over the years, I've met so many people that have done recovery or have done treatment detoxes like 6, 7, 8 times, you know what I mean? And that's if they survive. Sometimes like people end up dying, you know, along the way because they just can't get it. And there is a huge gap, I think, to bridge from rehab onto the street, as if you want to call it, you know, especially if a lot of people have to go back into their same neighborhood, same area and all that. And you just don't know how to live. You know,
just don't know how to live sober. Right? Because it's an adjustment. I'm sure it's an adjustment for all of you. And it still is for me. Like sometimes I'm like, oh shit, I've never done this completely conscious before. Like, and
from all angles, like emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever way you want to look at it, like every aspect of, especially if they've been using since they were kids. Like, you know, we were speaking about this a while ago, that if you're using drugs from an early age, that's a big part of your identity. The whole way up, and then you go into rehab or treatment or whatever people call it, and then 3 months or 6 months or 28 days, whatever length of time it is, you come out and all of a sudden you're meant to be a completely different person and understand how to work the world, you know. And I've seen it recently with someone I know that's like in their 40s and just give up like heavy drugs and heavy drinks, like, and just I experienced how raw someone can be and unaware of the world. You know, how to get a job. You're talking about, you know, do they like their job? Some people never had a job and then trying to work into those kind of integrate into that kind of section of society and stuff. It's a huge challenge. Like I know in Ireland we have they call them halfway houses. So it's like once you leave, then you can go into this place and then you can go. But it's still not like what you do sounds great, you know, like having someone close or having someone, just say that we're in California, I'm sure, you know, it's like you have someone that you can connect into it, like that's kind of supporting and pushing you in the right direction, or even, just helping you understand how to do the simple things in life, you know, because the simple things we can make into the most complicated things.
Yes, we can. and when you see it through that lens of like, well, of course I behaved like that for so long because I was really just like a kid that was in a lot of pain, and that helps people have a whole new kind of compassion for themselves like they've never had before. So it's like, yeah, of course I wasn't able to hold down a job because like I never really liked myself anyway. And so now that I'm learning to slowly like myself again, how can you help me discover my gifts, my natural talents? Because we all have them. And especially, I think people that, you know, have chosen to escape with drugs and alcohol are some of the most creative, like amazing people I've ever met that just got misguided. And it's like, yeah, coming back.
Yeah. Go on. Sorry, Mick.
No, it's just to think of like the level of like substance abuse, like, you know what I mean, that's in like around the world, like, you know what I mean. But like, say for us in Ireland, it's like just alcohol alone is like, I think there's like, what, how many millions in Ireland? 4.5 million, and 1.3 million people I reckon is are problem drinkers, like, you know what I mean. That's it's an issue, you know. And but like, you know, the level of addiction is so massive and there's so little help there, you know. Just, I know a little bit about like 12-step groups and stuff like that, and I suppose there are just like addicts and alcoholics that are like kind of helping each other with some literature to, you know what I mean, to support them in getting clean. So it's going to be flawed, but to think of those things not being there with the level of addiction that's in the world, like, you know what I mean, it would be, because if it was left to say government bodies and that, you know what I mean, it's charities and 12-step groups really that are taking up the bulk of the load, you know. But like, you know, to have that good mentorship that you're talking about having is vital for it to work. You know, I was blessed like that along the way. You know, I got involved with people who had lived, like, you know what I mean, sober lives and were willing to kind of give me some guidance and things like that, and they were, you know, good healthy people that were like, you know, like living successfully, you know. And but I've also seen it the other way, where people like that don't have that type of support and like, you know, it's just simple things like taking care of yourself, like eating properly. Like, you know, I read a study once, and it was done with people in 12-step recovery, and they did two groups, 100 and 100, I think, as far as I remember. And the first group did like the 12-step recovery thing, and they had they just like ate as they wished, slept as they wished, like lived the life as they would, and they had a normal kind of percentage of success rate. But the second group, they looked at their diet. They did like they tested their hormones, they tested their nutrient levels, tested all these things. They addressed their diet, their sleep, their lifestyle, all that, and it was a virtually 100% success rate along with 12-step recovery. You know what I mean? And it's like, but the supports aren't there to do it. The levels, like even in a small town, like say where I'm from in Ireland, like, you know, other than charities, like other than there's charity organisations that are involved, like with key workers, they might have like 50 people. One key worker might have 50 people that they're meant to counsel, they're meant to, you know, sort out all this stuff for them. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous, you know. So like, you know what I mean, to have anything like yourself, it sounds brilliant, like, you know what I mean, but it's like, you know, it's there's such a wave of this stuff though, you know what I mean. It does it's just to put in there, I do think that, yeah, with these 12-step programs, absolutely they're flawed, but they are vital, you know?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. Like, thank God they're there, because you can find a meeting, especially where I live in the Los Angeles area. Like, you can find a meeting starting at 5 a.m. all the way until midnight.
That's
you
awesome.
know, and it is awesome. And, you know, we've got a lot of really great recovery here. And I will never, ever talk badly about these programs. Like, I just want to help people integrate everything. And a lot of people choose to continue doing that, but not only for that, but for connection, right? Like, you know, you can just go in those rooms and you don't have to say anything, but you're co-regulating with people and feeling like, yes, I'm loved. And like, I can be here right now. I can stay in my own skin for an hour. And for that, like, I'm grateful, because I needed that at first, when I just felt like I was going to crawl out of my skin every day.
Yeah, well, it's known that you're not alone as well. It's known that you're not alone, because a lot of people think, you know, oh, it's only me. It's only me that thinks like this. It's only me that can't not stop, or, you know, or that can't stop, sorry. Or it's only me that, you know, struggles with this, with small things in life. You know, I always say in Ireland, you know, we're great at dealing with the big things, but we fall apart over the small things, you know. It's true.
The pedal in the shoe is the one that gets you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Amy, do you address things like diet? Would you look at that like with your clients?
Absolutely. Yeah. Usually that comes up right away. I actually have a nutrition background. And so I taught nutrition classes in treatment centers. And, you know, one thing that I found was that, like, I have an approach where I'm like, I want to add value to your life before I take anything else away from you. Right? Like, so much as all those coping mechanisms have been taken away. So I start to add value. We find out what people like to eat. What I say, all things you ingest matter. So from the social media you ingest, to the television you ingest, to the people you ingest, and definitely to the food you ingest. And my background is so strong in nutrition that I have a lot of knowledge of the science behind the microbiome. Oh. And I really know that, like, that is a missing link in exactly what you said, Mick. I love that story. You know, when these people looked at all those parts of their life, they had 100% success. And now we know that, like, our serotonin and dopamine, 90% of it's made in the large intestine, and the small intestine is so important. Like, if I can go there first and get them on a nice regimen, we're even that much more successful. And I always meet people where they are. They're like, I can't do that right now. I'm like, cool, I'll just keep suggesting it. But then they're like, how does your skin look so good? How do you have so much energy? And I'm like, because I treat all of these things in myself. You know, that's one thing is like, I'll never give somebody something that I don't practice every day.
Yeah.
That's cool. So what kind of diet do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
For people in recovery, I mean, it's all about like thinking about what, first of all, again, it's like adding value in. So what do you like to eat? What do you do? A lot of people are still on a lot of processed foods, which in the United States are so easy to find. You know, there's fast food restaurants everywhere. So I start to like, basically the first thing I add more of is water. I mean, it sounds like the most basic thing in the world.
No.
But like people do not drink enough water.
I'm brutal. I'm terrible for water. I do not drink enough water, and I know it. Like, and everyone says to me, you need to drink more water, and I don't know why. I should have, especially here in a hot country, I should be drinking gallons of water. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like someone like you, if you came to me and you're like, "Wow, I'm conscious that I don't drink enough water," and maybe you have a headache sometimes, maybe you don't feel good, you're more foggy headed, you're a little lethargic. So two like quick like little hints I can give to everyone listening. It's like always have water everywhere, right? Like have good, healthy water. I keep water in my car. I have a water bottle on my desk, in my kitchen, by my bed. You know, like I'm always equipped. Like, okay, I know to do that. And then another really simple thing, and that everyone really enjoys, is to have a jar or a bag or something of nuts. Of just nuts, of cashews, of almonds, of walnuts, and keep one in your car. Keep one in your backpack. Keep one in, you know, your kitchen, on your desk, because, you know, we get really into something and we forget to eat or drink water. And like those two things, just like you said, that pebble in your shoe that day, that pebble in your shoe is going to be like a fucking like stone that like is keeping you down. And you're like, wait a second, if I just drink some water and have a handful of nuts, like, my insulin levels are going to even out and I'm going to feel better. And so that's what I mean about starting to add value. And then it's like we slowly start to cut out processed foods, and then we look at the microbiome and really like healing the gut from that level. And I can get into all the science about this, but I don't want to bore everyone. But like it's basically like heal that lining around your gut so that you start having better bowel movements, so that you kick out all the bad gang members, those little one-celled microbiota that are in your belly can be like what's causing you to stay depressed, what's causing you to want to like stay in bed all day.
Anxiety and you the gut, like it's a massive thing. Like when you take away a substance that you've been dependent on, and for your emotional stability, even though it's been a thing that's been thrown you totally like into a spiral emotionally, like you take that away, like, you know, sadness feels like depression, anxiety feels like terror. You know, these things are just like magnified. And what people don't get is that like your diet is going to change your mood, and sometimes that mood, it doesn't have to be a desperate state of affairs. It can be just enough. If you're eating crap and you're bringing your mood down, like on top of that, your mental state will escalate things to such an extent that you'll go for the drink. You'll go, like, it will spiral, like, you know, like in a way. It's a massive thing. Like, I mean, it took me a long time to get it. Like, I didn't take care of myself with my diet at all. Like, you know what I mean? My gut was in a bad way. I had like aching joints. I had like inflammation in all my joints, like, you know, and it was like really affecting me badly. I was just lucky that I had a friend, like, she knew a nutritionist, and she got on, and I started taking stuff like kefir for my gut, like, you know what I mean, and like, and drinking loads of water. Those things, just those two simple things will start getting my gut in order. Like, in fairness, I went vegetarian for a couple of years as well, like, but those two things, the lots of water and sorting out my gut, like, it was massive. Like, I wish I just had done it earlier, like you're doing with these people. Like, you know, it really helped.
Yeah. And something that I love that I've heard from all three of you guys is that, like, it took you a long time to kind of figure that out on your own. And
Absolutely.
so what my whole purpose is like, hey, like, there's people like me that exist that can help you get this way before your 5th year of sobriety. Like, you can have this in your first 6 months.
7, 8, or 9, or 10. Or in Danny's case, 19th.
Because, you know, all of those things affect.
Oh, with the water, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Still won't get it though. You know, be like, oh yeah, I should drink more water. I get off this and I'll be like, oh yeah, someone told me to drink water again. You know what I mean?
It changes the way when I'm consciously drinking lots of water over the past couple of months now, you know, and I'm recognizing the feeling when I'm dehydrated now. You know, whereas before I didn't recognize it, or I wasn't aware as such. I don't know if that makes sense, you know, because sometimes you just feel like you feel a bit shit or something like that, you know. But now I actually know, right, you know, I feel way better when I drink 3 or 4 liters of water every day.
Yep.
I feel way better. So all I need to do is a certain bottle, and when that's drunk every day, I know I'm well hydrated, you know.
Yeah, and that's a great tip, Danny, that you can bring into your life is like just have those 2 glass jars or whatever you drink out of there for you and be like, oh my gosh, I haven't finished that one yet. And then start finishing them. And then your body reaches a new level of like wellness, just like you're saying, I don't feel shit. And it has something to do with that water. And it can be, that's so simple. That is so simple. And it's not that easy. I get it. But it's like, if you just have.
No, but it is, like, you know what I mean? It's just like, basically, Danny, what the 3 of us are saying is get your shit together, man. You know, go get a bottle of water there now, will you? And just start drinking it.
It sounds very complex to me. I can't handle that sort of stuff. Okay, step by step, explain that process.
In the morning, wake up, fill it up.
I know, it's just gone once. I got lost at the start. You know, get the water, the glass.
Whoa, back it up.
How much water?
Exactly. But it can feel that confusing if you felt like shit for so long. And I love what you said, Colin, too, because like the body just gets used to however it feels.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, is this what sobriety feels like? Well, fuck it. I'm going to drink or I'm going to use drugs because like if this is as good as it gets, I want to go back to how I was. And then you start to, you know, experience a little more. And you're like, oh, wait, this is kind of cool. You know, if I can keep up these habits and, you know, it takes a few months to make it a habit. It doesn't happen overnight. So you have until April 26th, Daniel, to start actually drinking water.
I have to go because I have to go and fill a bottle of water.
To take a break because we have to pee.
All right, nice one. Yeah. Rub it in.
I love how you approach it, that you have to add something to people's lives before you start taking it away. Because I remember, like, when I wanted to stop taking drugs, say, when I was 23. I was 23 years of age, you know. Now, for an Irishman at 23 years of age, and I'm speaking back when I was 23, I don't exactly know what the younger generation, what the lives around, right? But when I was 23, lives evolved around drinking. And at the time, drugs were very new to Ireland. From when I was a teenager, for the first 5 or 6 years, drugs, where I come from, were all new. It's not like in America, like in LA and all these places, or New York, where drugs are old. Right. You know, like maybe in Dublin, they weren't as old, but weren't as new. But where I came from, they were very, very new. And we were like the guinea pigs, you know, we were the test subjects, man. We didn't have anyone to look at and go, oh, that's what you're going to end up like. You know, it was
they were looking at you.
Yeah, at 23,
where the OGs.
Yeah, I may have stopped.
Oh, jeez.
No, because I remember being 23, and a guy says, I said to him, you know, I want to give up drugs and all that, and then he, in order to give up drugs, he listed out all the things I had to give up in order to give up drugs. And I was like, no, I'm 23. I want to go to nightclubs. I want to do this. I want to do that, you know. And it was just like, it was a devastating time to think that, like, what, like you say to I'm sure it's the same in a lot of countries, but I can only speak for Ireland. When you say to a young Irishman, look, at 23 years of age, look, stop drinking now. Be like, the first thing they're going to say is, what do I do? Yep. And that was my question. What the fuck am I going to do? It was like, but you know, the whole life, I just wanted to stop taking drugs, you know, and just drink. But I was lucky. Like, I remember giving them up, and it was just like a cloud had been lifted off my head, and I just couldn't believe all the stuff that was in the world. You know, I was really enthusiastic. I was lucky I had that in me.
Yeah.
Now, people along the way that don't have the same, they don't discover the same passion for life that quickly. So you're in limbo. But I was just like, me personally, I was like a steam train going, you know, there was no stopping me. So but I've often tried to explain that to people. You know, like you have to, like when you're taking drugs and you're drinking, that's your passion. You have a passion for that kind of thing. So it's trying to replace that passion with healthy passions in life. And like you said, I didn't know I was creative. I didn't know. In school, I couldn't really draw. So in art class in Ireland, if you can't draw, you're not good at art, you know. But then my whole life evolved around art. You know, I became a fashion photographer. I was doing all that kind of stuff. So my life evolved around art. And I kind of discovered this whole new life. And I don't think I could ever have done that if I was doing drugs and drinking, you know. Life just evolved too much around that. I wanted to know everything about drugs. Everything.
Oh, yeah.
Everything. I wanted to be able to rattle it off. It was like, you know, I meet someone new. Oh, you should come take coke with me. That's who I really am. Not in those words, but that's the way it was like, you know. I never said that to people, but that's the way I portrayed it, you know. I felt very, I suppose when I look back at it, I was kind of insecure maybe about who I really was or something like that, if I'm trying to portray myself in a different light, you know.
Yeah. Well, when I started doing drugs so young, I didn't actually start doing drugs until college, but even drinking so young, it shut part of my brain off. So I didn't know who I was, you know, like that's still that's part of the fun of being sober. It's like, I still get to discover parts of me that I'm like, oh, wow, like that's in there. And I didn't know that. And I didn't give myself any room to feel that, because I love what you said. It's like, it was tunnel vision. I knew everything that there was to know about drugs and alcohol. I like studied wine, you know, and it's just like, that's all I knew, you know? And I mean, I knew a lot of other stuff, but like that came first because that provided me the most relief from being myself. And so I was an expert, but I will say, like, I was also the person who drank the way I did. And I would have like several bottles of wine and vodka next to my bed at the end. And then there would be liver cleanse right next to it as well, as if like that one little bottle of milk thistle and liver cleanse. It's like, I knew I was killing myself slowly, but I was like, well, this is helping.
I would come home after days without sleep or food, and I would open up the press, and there'd be cod liver oil tablets, and I just take a handful of them. Take a handful of them, bit of water into bed. You know what I mean? Sorted. Yeah, no, and like I was like, people thought, there was a wine shop in my hometown, and the woman who owned it thought I was a wine buff, you know, because I bought a lot of wine. But I used to come in and I'd be reading all the labels. She thought I was like studying it, when all I was actually looking for was the percentage of alcohol. It's like, once it was over 13, I'm buying it, no problem, that's it. And it kind of worked out well. That's pretty much a good like rule of thumb for getting a good bottle of wine. But
the second one doesn't have to be as expensive if you get the first one at 13 or above.
Exactly, yeah.
I remember coming across a can of cider for when I was younger. It was called White Lightning. Did any of you ever come across that? White Lightning cider. I think it was like 10% in a can of beer or can of cider. Yeah.
Paint stripper.
Yeah, paint stripper. Yeah, it was like, fuck. It must be the best out there. You know what I mean? So I understand your theory and just looking at how much percentage is in it. Can I just jump in and interject there for a second, because we got an email the other day, which was it was a really interesting question. I would like to hear your take on it as well, Amy, because I'm going to read it out. I don't know if I should say the girl's name or not.
Full name anyway. No.
Yeah, her name is. We got an email from Dakota, and I didn't get to reply yet because I've been traveling from Ireland to Spain, and we've been quite busy. So I just thought it might be nice for four of us to give have a chat about in perspective, because it was quite a decent email. So I'm just going to read it out. Hey guys, love the podcast, really inspiring and super beneficial on my road to recovery. Just had to get that part in there, sorry.
Look.
Thanks, we really appreciate that.
Nice one.
It's nice to hear that from people. I'm just curious, how have you guys dealt with friends going back out and using? I recently met up with a friend who was like a little brother to me, and he was newly in recovery like myself, but unfortunately he just went back out. I'm struggling on how to set that boundary and not get too involved with being there, because I know I'll slip back into that lifestyle. But I don't want to be a bitch and shun him from my life. But mainly I am also dealing with feeling envious of his using. I don't like it, but I'm kind of jealous, which is super confusing. Thanks for your time, and hope you guys have a wonderful day. Like that's a really, 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 because I can't believe we never actually touched on that before, because that is such a fucking huge thing. I've met like people that you get close to. You know, everyone kind of sticks together when you meet sober people at the start. You kind of stick with people, you know, and so many people over the years I've seen have gone back using, that might get a year, they might get 2 years, they might get 6 months. You know, you think someone's doing really well, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're gone, disappearing, like, you know. And it's quite a challenge. What do you think, guys?
Well, I'd like to hear from Amy anyway.
Okay. I love this question. It's such a real, and I want to tell Dakota, it's Dakota, right?
Dakota, yeah.
Yeah, Dakota, like, it's such an honest question, and what courage it takes to say that you feel those jealous feelings. And I felt them too. And sometimes I still do. And so I love that you're just so honest about that, because like, we're human and it's natural. And like, you haven't like elevated to this other dimension where you don't feel those things. So that's just awesome that you're recognizing it. And, you know, for me, it was like, I needed to know that I was always taking care of myself first. And as a woman, especially growing up in the Mexican family where the matriarch, the mom, kind of did a lot of the stuff for everyone, I had a lot of ideas that it was my job to help people. And when I started to live sober and really knew that I was committed to staying sober, I had to let go of a lot of those ideas. Like, it just didn't resonate for me, because if I knew that if I was simultaneously feeling like I needed to help them and I was a little jealous, and what I found I was jealous of was that they got to escape and I didn't. And so I'd look at the look, you know, that kind of dazed look that you get in your eye, or that visceral like body feeling of like, oh yeah, like, you know, that the alcohol hit you or the drug hit you. And I would look at them and I'd be like, oh my God, that looks so enticing. And what I realized was like, I don't want that anymore. And it's not my job to save them. But it took so much. I had to talk about it with my friends a lot, you know, like, okay, I'm conscious that this is what I'm feeling, and it's not my job to help them. It's my job to take care of myself. And what I'm really jealous of isn't the intoxication that I'm watching them have. I'm jealous that they look like they're content. They look like they're happy. And I'm just viewing it from the lens of how I see them now, and not what they're going to feel like in an hour. Absolutely. And then in the next day. And so I had to put that in perspective. I'm like, yeah, that looks great. And I already know how that's going to play out for me. You know, it's going to feel good for about 15 minutes. And then as I got stronger with it, then I could start to be of service to people in that way. But to this day, if I'm depressed, or if I'm feeling anxious, or if I've just had a bad day, like, I will reschedule clients, because I can't show up and be my best for them if I'm in that mindset. So, you know, it's like taking care of myself first is number one. And it's real honest of you to admit that, because it's real. And that's how people take each other out. I just had a couple both overdose on heroin because of that, you know, and they're both dead now. And like, that's the reality of what happens when if I subconsciously knew, because I relapsed or whatever you want to call it, but I went back out a number of times, and I consciously knew that I was hanging out with those people because I knew I still wanted that option. And until I got really honest with myself and said, like, Amy, you really, like, those people are not going to help you. Like, you're going to go back out if they do. And you're kind of waiting for them to, so that you can drink with them. Then I was like, okay, I can't do that anymore. And it's hard. So that's a great, awesome question. I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, it is. It's a very difficult one. Like, you know, it took me a long time. It took me a long time to actually accept when someone's going back out there and doing all that stuff, there's not really much I can do, only for when they do want to come back and they do show, like, is to be there for them and show compassion and that kind of thing. Like, because I've seen so many people die. I've seen a lot of people die, especially in my hometown. At one stage, like, you know, people were dropping off a lot. And people that I knew, like, and it was nearly a whole generation of people that not a whole generation, a generation of people that got into heavier drugs. You know, that the hardcore ones, like heroin or cocaine. No, more heroin, like, they just all start dying around the one time, you know. So it's a very tough one. What do you think, Mick?
I think it's where you're at as well. Like along the road and how secure you are in yourself. Like, it's extremely unlikely that somebody that I know now using, because I know I've experienced this many times over the 12 years. Like, I mean, I've had friends who overdosed, who committed suicide, who, like, all these things, you know, from the turmoil of going back, you know, going back using or whatever. But this girl, like, sounds like she's early days, you know, and really at that stage, you know, with someone like that who has had, like, you know what I mean, issues, like, you mean, it's like she came in, she's given up because she needed to. It's really important, like, you know what I mean, and it can be a life and death thing for some people. I think if that's the stage, your early days, and somebody, you really have to protect yourself from that stuff, like, you know what I mean, your head is going to try and do everything it can to get you to use, you know, and it's like, so, you know, for her, like, you know, it is difficult, like you were saying, it is difficult, but it's for somebody in Dakota's situation, it's far more important that she takes care of herself, you know. That is the understanding that you were bringing to it, like saying, that jealousy that she's, like, admitting to, which is a perfectly human response, you know, because you know, that relief, that release, that's kind of what you perceive is going to be what you keep on going back for in this, even when it becomes an issue. Like, you don't come looking to give up straight away. You come and you try to find out a way to use successfully. That's what you want to do, you know what I mean? Because this did work really well. No, yeah. Like, you know, I know very few people that go, even after the car crashes, even after the breakups, the job losses, everything like that, a lot of people still aren't coming and going, all right, I need to learn how to give this up. They're kind of like, Jesus, if I just got rid of that drug, and, you know, if I was only drinking at the weekends, and I was like, you know, and you know, very limited results, you know, or, like, you know, success, it seems. But I think, you know, then when it comes to the point of giving up, you know, it's a different thing. It's more serious, and you really have to take care of yourself, number one. And over time, then, you know, those things do pass. You start to really play it out in your head, like you were talking about. You're saying you're not just thinking of that initial drink, you know what I mean, that release. You're thinking of the consequences that always seem to come for certain people. Like, when if you've had that experience and you can play that out, like, you know, the longer you stick around, the more you see that those consequences seem to come for the majority of the people that do that, you know, that go back and have that drink and do it successfully for a time. You know, shortly after that, in my experience, or like, you know, a large percentage of people end up back in the same situation or worse.
What do you think, Dan?
Well, for me, firstly, I'd like to thank Dakota for her honesty, and you know, it's a very powerful question, and I think it's funny, over the last while, it's been something that's been it's stirred up a lot of emotion in me the last while, because I don't know, stuff coming up about it. But what I was really thinking about, what I enjoyed, because like you guys, I've lost some close friends that I've had to disconnect from, and then the next time I see them is, unfortunately, to bury them, and it's sad, and to kind of, the way I see it now is, and kind of what Amy said was that, and I liked what you said is, and that's a very conscientious way to think about it, is that you will not talk to a client if you're not right yourself. I mean, I trained, and to use a kind of an analogy, I trained as a scuba instructor, And one of the things that we were always trained was, do not put yourself at risk, because you're going to end up with 2 people drowning. And if that person is trashing in the water, give them something that can help them, or be somewhere secure that you can help them from. But do not go into the place where they can drag you down, because they will drag you down. And unfortunately, as sad as that is, I'm in a place now that I can help someone. But I can't go to the place where they're not helping themselves to go and help them, because I run the risk of going to that place and getting drowned with them. And for me, as sad as it is, I mean, when I look at friends over the years, I know that they know where I am. They know where they can find me if they need help. They know I'm there for them. And it's the only way I know I can help them is by being there and doing the things that I need to do to be strong enough to help them, you know, through whatever it is. But I cannot go to the places. And if they're in a place where they're not looking for that help, or they don't need me as a friend in that way, I can't go to those places. And it's just something I'm very protective about, that part of my life, in that it's given me so much over the years that I don't want to risk losing it. And the only way I can, and I like that, and I like the whole concept, because I never really knew what a recovery coach is. And listening to this whole thing, I think it's fantastic, because like that, the only way I can attract people to the way I'm living is by living that way and showing people that life is fun in this way of life. Life is enjoyable. I can go out and do things. I mean, it's been great. Colin's been over visiting me here, and we went up to the mountain, beautiful views, you know, just, you know, it was a really nice day. And there's been so many days like that. And by shining that example, I mean, for years I DJ'd in one of the biggest clubs in my area, and lads around the place knew that what I was before I started DJing, and they looked at me and they were attracted to that life, and they knew what I did. And people came in and I helped them because they seen me leading a way, not by trying to drag them out of somewhere, but saying, look what's over here. It's a lot better. You can come here, just come and talk to me, or, you know, follow the same route that I'm going. And that, I think it's really important, as hard as it is to disconnect from that situation, but make it known. I always say to my friend, I am here if you need me, but I can't go there to help you. You know what I mean? And that's a massive thing for me. And you know, and I like that. You know, it's been something that I've stuck to throughout the years of living this road. And that's my 2 pence on it.
And just one more thing. I think just to thank the coach again. I think that was great feedback from everyone. But and Amy, just to leading back to something that you said, I know we're coming close to the end, around the musician friends who feared, like, you know, giving up like drink or drugs because they didn't feel like they'd be able to perform, and you're like alluded, like, you know, making love or whatever it is, these things that people like connect substances to and believe that they can't have those experiences, like, you know. And it's crazy. And just, you know, and it's great that you kind of bring that up, because there's all these kind of blocks that people have before they do it, and they've no kind of concept. If like we all talked about, basically from a child, that you've been having these experiences, and that's what you've always linked them to. And it's all really, like, you know what I mean, yeah, like a substance can open a door to, like, you removing the fear in a situation, like, you know what I mean, to make it can give you that connection. But like everything, it just stops working, you know. Like, you know, if you abuse it, it's going to stop working, and it's so difficult to get it back. But if you're sober, you're not using these things, and if you can find a place in yourself where you can get over the fears of these things, like, you know what I mean, and you start to experience them, you experience them on a totally different level, you know. And so I really like that you talked about that. I really, and it is a really important thing that I think we all in our own ways have experienced, you know what I mean, that we have these interests that we've started to take on, and rather than it being a disadvantage, it's such an advantage. It's such an it's just a really nice thing. I just wanted to kind of go back to that. It had been something that we talked at the start.
Yeah, and I love what you said, because, like, it's okay to feel fear and do it anyway. Like, you know, I mean, I'm enjoying the three of you guys so much. I like want to go to Ireland and meet you. But before I got on the call with you, I was nervous. I'm like, are they going to like me? Are they going to dig me?
I'm just going to throw it out there, Amy. I don't know about the other two lads, but I've never been to America, so don't be surprised if 3 Irish lunatics turn up.
You are welcome in Topanga Canyon. You would be like, everyone would love it.
Family. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Jesus, boys, how's it going?
We travel in packs.
I love it.
We'll arrive in our work clothes before you know it. We'll be working hard in around your place and all. Yeah. No, it's like you're saying, it's coming to the end because we always try to keep it to the hour, you know, in around that time. So I think it's coming naturally to a nice end. But Amy, it's been great having you on, and I hope you keep in touch with us.
Yeah,
definitely.
Very much so. It's been awesome, man. It's been really enjoyable. Do you want to tell people, like anyone that's listening that might be already following you or anything, where to find you?
Sure, yeah. Yes, it's such a delight to see all of you guys and to be here with you. And I look forward to knowing you for however long we live in these bodies of ours right now. Yes. Exactly. And you guys, you can find me on Instagram at Thrive in Recovery with Amy. And my website, do you guys do show notes on your podcast?
We can put that in there.
Yeah, so we'll put it in there, but it's amyguerrero.com is my website. And then on Facebook, it's Thrive in Recovery with Amy as well. So I try to keep it simple and to the point. That's what we do together. We thrive in recovery and we have fun doing it. And yeah, I love what I do. It's totally my purpose. And, you know, after I work with people, they're living on purpose too, which is the coolest, most rewarding, amazing thing about it.
Well, Amy, I can speak for the three of us in this and say we've loved having you on. It's been awesome, man. It's been so much fun. And listen, I swear to God, the three of us are going to turn up on your door one day with the whole family.
I love it.
With some water. I'm going to bring some water.
Water.
And you'll be there with a little backpack with the straw coming over.
I actually have one and someone bought it for me. I think it was a message in some way.
We need camel pack, totally. I will welcome you with open arms, yes.
Yeah. Like I said, you're always welcome in Ireland or in Spain, because that's where Dan lives.
Tenerife?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tenerife, it's awesome.
The warmth of Spain seems more inviting than Ireland at the moment.
Whoa.
Hey. ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa?
What we lack in temperature in the Republic of Ireland, we make up with the warmth of our hearts.
Make up with rain. Make up with rain. Lots of rain. No, only joking.
But, yeah, so and thanks to anyone who's been listening. It's been such a cool journey for us so far into this. It's been great. Thanks for everyone's feedback. You know, we love seeing your comments on Facebook and our the direct messages on Instagram, and thanks for the emails and that kind of stuff. It's been great so far. So yeah, anyone has any questions for the next podcast, hit us up, drop us a message on Instagram or Facebook. Our Instagram is at That's Good Crack Podcast, and our Facebook is just search for That's Good Crack. Our Twitter is that_crack.
Twitter.
I don't know why Danny picked that name, but it's kind of cool, I suppose. That's been great.
I'm a legend, man. I'm a legend. That's why I did it.
Wow.
I didn't even mean to do it. It just happened.
But I'm glad you cleared up for us, Amy, what a recovery coach is, and we think it's awesome. And I would have loved to have someone like you in my life early days to kind of, so it didn't take me 5 or 6 years to kind of discover all the cool things that were laid out for me in the future. So it's pretty cool, man. Thank you so much. And I think, yeah.
And if you ever get a bus, can you please send us photographs of the recovery coach with the recovery coach in it?
I think it would complement your already awesome business. I think it would just complement it perfectly. So.
It would be a very hip coach. I promise you that.
Let's get a GoFundMe up to get Amy a coach.
Exactly. Well, then I could take this show on the road, and that would be so fun for me. I would love that.
You know, you love those big buses in America, don't you? Where people live in the motorhomes, yeah.
Yeah, I could live in it. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, start a GoFundMe. I'm all about it.
We could all live in it.
Then you guys can come visit, and we can do the whole tour of the United States. Yeah.
In Ireland, you could have a tracker, recovery coach hits South Africa, recovery coach hits, yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm literally on looking to apply for a green card as we speak, so I'm joking. Don't freak out.
The look of shock. No, 3 Irish guys.
I'm like, come visit first.
So listen, take care, guys, and it was great chatting to you.
Peace.
Yes, it's good to see you.
Don't forget to subscribe to That's Good Crack on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever you're listening to it right now.